Moving on. This is what it says. A friend said at church on stage that God doesn't override your free will. But then he said, well, I wouldn't say never. And then he suggested that Saul laying naked prophesying was against Saul's will. And that's quoted 1 Samuel 19:20 through 24. And so question is, does God override our free will?
Okay. It depends on the context. And so God does override a person's free will, for example, when he sends them to hell. Right? And so
interesting point, yep.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who would be standing at the judgment in heaven going, God, I want to go to hell. And God goes, okay, I'm gonna send you to hell because you want to. He did allow them their free will during their life. And now when they stand before him, the judgment that comes down on them is against their free will. And so usually when I'm talking about God doesn't overrule your free will, I'm talking about in the daily course of your life and the choices that you are making, God is not going to overrule your free will. I don't think anybody in Sodom and Gomorrah were looking towards the heavens going, gosh, I wish that fire and brimstone would rain down on me right at this point. And if they had gotten notice on that they believed, I don't think it would be their free will that those things actually happened to them. And so again, you have the context of judgment. And when you're talking about 1 Samuel 19, this is a judgment. And so it says in verse 18 that David fled and escaped. Saul has commanded his servants to kill David. And Saul has come after David, and Saul has actually tried to kill David himself. And so David flees and escapes, and he goes to Samuel at Ramah, and he's told that David is at Ramah. Then it says, verse 20, that Saul sent messengers to take David, and when they saw the group of prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing as leader over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. And when Saul was told, he sent other messengers, and they prophesied likewise. Then Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they prophesied also. Then he also went to Ramah and came to the great well that is at Secu. So he asked and said, where are Samuel and David? And someone said, indeed, they are at Naioth and Ramah. So he went there to Naioth and Ramah. Then the Spirit of God was upon him also, and he went and prophesied until he came to Naioth in Ramah. And he also stripped off his clothes and prophesied before Samuel in like manner, and lay down naked all that day and all that night. Therefore they say, is Saul also among the prophets? Now here's one of the things that you have in this passage, is that the word for prophesy literally means to babble. And so Saul may not have been prophesying in the sense that we're talking about.
Right, the biblical.
Yeah, in the way that Samuel was prophesying in that passage. He may have just been laying on the ground babbling, and that is the term that's used there is actually the term that's used when a false prophet prophesies.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this is obviously a judgment on Saul.
Right.
And so in this instance, what God is doing is overruling Saul's free will here. And God's allowed to do that in judgment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, because Saul's kind of like a spiritual meth head where he's like, I'm for you, I'm against you, right, and he's in sin, he's at it, he's repentive, then he's fake. Right. So that's what guys do in that situation. They're emotionally erratic and crazy weirdo guy.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have this again in every instance of God's judgment on a person in the Bible, whether that judgment takes place during their lifetime or whether that judgment takes place after their lifetime. So, for example, you were talking about the situation in Luke 16 where Jesus is talking about the Lazarus and the rich man, and the rich man's in Hades, and he's tormented. and he says to Abraham, will you send Lazarus back so that I've got 5 brothers and he can share with them? And the answer is no. And so that guy's got a free will, and God doesn't go with it at that point. He goes, they got Moses and the prophets. And so, again, there's all kinds of instances where God is not going along with my free will or letting me do things. And so, there, for example, the rich man would he knew not to ask the question, but the best option for him is that if he got to go back and talk to his brothers, and then he'd get out of there, right? And so he doesn't even ask for that. And obviously the answer to that would be no too. And so when you're talking about judgment coming down on people, there's no free will involved.
Yeah.
In that instance.
So looking at that, you already answered it, but I'm almost positive God's overridden my free will multiple times and saved me from a bunch of junk of stupid things that I was going to do.
Yeah.
God just kind of, thwarts my where I'm going and goes, we're not going to do that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Your car breaks down, can't find your keys. There was one time where I was late for an appointment. I had a motorcycle, and I was going to go someplace. I was late for an appointment, and I could not find my motorcycle keys. And I'm looking all over the house, and I'm looking in my bedroom, and I look over and over. And so finally I prayed about it, and I was like, God, can you help me find my keys? And so I felt like he told me to go into my bedroom, and I looked at the top of the dresser, and he told me they're right there. And I could not see them. I was like, okay, well, that's not God, because I don't see my keys there. That's crazy. And so I ended up not being able to go for actually it was probably a couple of hours. And then I went back into the bedroom, and there on my dresser were my motorcycle keys.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. And I was like, what was that? What was going on there? And I think that what God was doing was keeping me from getting in an accident.
Wow.
Yeah. So
there you go.
I don't know. He never told me, but.
Yeah. This happens a lot at the Lewis house when I open the fridge, and I'm like, where is it? Where's the ketchup? And my wife's like, it's right there. No, it's not. And then she comes over, hands me the bottle. I'm like, oh, it was right there. I just couldn't see it.
No, the problem is, and let me tell you, I'm telling you and everybody that's listening to us, the problem is that it doesn't get put back where it belongs.
It's always random.
It's always random, yeah. It's like we just toss things in places. Why can't it not just go back to the exact same spot? There's no reason that it shouldn't. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm a pattern guy. Yeah, Quit breaking the pattern.
Yeah. There's no reason to stick it. I mean, it's in the drawer, or it's in the door. That's usually where it goes. It's in the door. Why can't it be in the same place? There's a hole for it when it left. And when it goes back, it could go right back in the same hole.
Preach.
Yep. All the guys agree with me.
All the guys said?
Amen.
Amen.